That's right. You're getting 3 in a row. Today, we're going to be talking about Ghostbusters, the 4th one. Now, technically there's 5, but canonically there's only 4. The 2016 one was not actually part of the original Ghostbusters canon of 1 and 2. It is not even referenced or mentioned or even used in Afterlife or Frozen Empire. So as far as I'm concerned, there are only 4 Ghostbusters films in the canonical storyline. So we are going to be saying this is Ghostbusters 4. Now, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is... well, it's something of a mess. It's a beautiful mess. It's a wonderful mess. It's a mess that has potential to be fantastic. It has the potential, and I want to like it. I want to enjoy it. I want to love it. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was missing something. I may have to bring the whole previous 3 films into perspective here before I can actually talk about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It all began with the first one, the best one, the one that is a timeless classic that you can watch and rewatch and rewatch and rewatch and rewatch and rewatch infinitely and an infinite amount of times. It will never get old. It will never get boring. It will never get tiresome. There are scenes in Ghostbusters 2 that could get tiresome, but 1 is never tiresome. There was the perfect commingling of a group of people that made that movie shine brilliantly. It didn't take itself seriously, which is the number one thing that you had to pay attention to, is that it did not take itself seriously. Characters like Bill Murray's Peter Venkman, he didn't take anything seriously at all. He was staring at a ghost, and instead of going freaky-eyed, he just grabbed Ray by the ear and yanked him back and said, "Hey, you found a ghost. What do you plan to do with it? Do you have anything to get rid of it?" And Ray and Egon are just looking at him like they're a bunch of deer caught in the headlights. They have no planning. They have no ideas. So that's why Peter was there. Peter was the guy that kept these 2 in line. He was the guy that had his foot in the real world, while these 2 had their feet in fairy tale, science land, and supernatural land. Science land for Egon and supernatural land for Ray. These guys are just complete nerds going about it, and Peter had to keep these 2 in line somehow. So he was the one who formed the business. He's the one who convinced Ray and Egon to go into business with him. He's the one who got Janine in as the secretary. He's the one who picked the firehouse. He's the one who convinced Ray to refinance his house to pay for it. It was fantastic. It was a fantastic lightning in a bottle experience that will probably never, ever be recaptured ever again, which is very unfortunate. I hope that type of comedy comes back someday. It probably would have to be an R-rated comedy in today's climate, but I don't care. I would love to see those types of comedies come back. Movies like Stripes, like the freaking It's a Mad World, Caddyshack. Bring those types of comedies back. We need them desperately. It's that type of comedy that made even the 90s very memorable. There is one of my all-time favorite live-action Disney animated movie remakes that happened in the 90s, and it's called 101 Dalmatians, and I think the casting was downright perfect for almost everybody involved. They got everybody down perfectly. They picked 2 incredible comedians to play Horace and Jasper. They picked the perfect dude to play I keep forgetting the dude, the father's name, the husband's name. I keep forgetting his name. And then Anita, they got the perfect casting for her as well. They got the number one ultimate perfect casting for Cruella de Vil. She overacts her butt off, and she was perfect. I was howling with laughter as a kid and as an adult, watching and rewatching that type of film. And it's that type of energy, that type of devotion to the laughter, devotion to the comedy, and also that type of reverence for your craft that I feel is missing in a lot of films today. But in regards to Frozen Empire, I think they are trying. They are trying really hard to capture that. But I think they're trying a little bit too hard to nostalgia factor it rather than catch the energy and make something new, if that makes sense. When we got to the second Ghostbusters film, the team got together, the band got back together, all four of them got in together. They brought back Harold Ramis, and he was fantastic. I actually liked him a lot more in both. I liked him in both films, but he was one of my favorites. They brought back Sigourney Weaver, and that plot line was decent enough. The only thing that I was a little bit iffy on was not Harold Ramis. What is his name? Rick Moranis. I keep getting Rick Moranis and Harold Ramis mixed up. I think it's the "is" at the end of both last names. I think that's it. Rick Moranis, and they got him to get lovey-dovey with Janine in the second movie, and I'm not exactly sure if that would have worked out properly. Maybe they could have built up a plot point where Egon is Mr. Science Man a little bit too much, that he has absolutely no time at all for romance and love, that Janine gave up on him, and then she moved on to Lewis, played by Rick Moranis. And that was funny. It was funny, but I was questioning it, and I needed a little bit more of an explanation on why Janine suddenly changed affectations like that. I know it's been a few years. I think it was like a 5-year gap or something, but it's still a fun time. It still has that energy. It just kind of felt a little bit of a rush to just do the same movie again, I guess. Maybe that's because they didn't really need to make a sequel to Ghostbusters at all, period. It's just a fantastic film that you never really needed to make a sequel for, ever. But I'm glad that they did. I liked the second one. It's a funny movie. It didn't have as many jokes as the first one that made me laugh, but the second one definitely had a couple of them in there that made me laugh. Rick Moranis is fantastic. He is a fantastic actor. And funnily enough, I'm kind of confused on why Rick Moranis, whose kids have grown up by now, he retired, like, I think in 98 or 99 from acting to raise his kids as a single father. Well, it's been 25 years since then. I think your kids are grown up, bro. I think he is getting back into acting now, though. I think he's coming back to do one of those shrinking Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movies for Disney. I was just kind of wondering why he didn't show up in Frozen Empire, He was the 5th Ghostbuster. He was so excited about that. His character was, over the moon about that. And I was like, go, man, you go, dude. And, well, he didn't show up in this, and that's kind of unfortunate, even though I'll get to the characters in this and this character zoo going on here. By the third film, it was like a 25-year gap since the Ghostbusters 2. And honestly, the tone is very different. You can feel the absence with Harold Ramis. You could feel the lack of comedy. They were trying to make it more serious. They were trying to make it more reverent. They were trying to change the tone of the movie from a fantastic comedy about 4 dudes going into business as a supernatural pest control people who just happen to keep going up against big beasties and they're bubbling their way through somehow into a heartfelt, emotional journey. And honestly, I could say that it worked. I got a little bit moved at the end of Afterlife. And Paul Rudd was a fantastic addition to the cast. I loved the dynamic with the Spangler family, the daughter. Though I'm kind of curious as to who Spangler's baby mama was. Who did he get with? Because you look at Egon and you realize that that man's one and only true love is the craft, is science. He has no time for anything else. But I'm. It was okay. It was okay. It was an okay film, and the family dynamic was great. The casting for all of the characters was great. Phoebe was perfect. Finn Wolfhard's funny. He's fine. He just needs stuff to do. He needs a reason for his character to exist. You can't just let him be there for like 3 or 4 minutes and just have nothing to do. He's just standing in the background, making a quip every now and again. You need to give that guy a plot. You need to give him an arc. You need to give him a reason to be there. And they did for the first film, for the most part. They gave him a love interest. The love interest character is good. She was fine. What else? The Paul Rudd being the nerd about the Ghostbusters and knowing about all of this stuff was fine. The confusing part about this would be more of how did Phoebe and Finn Wolfhard's character, how did they grow up not knowing about the Ghostbusters? Like, isn't their last name Spangler? Egon Spangler was the original Ghostbuster. The Ghostbusters commercialized themselves. You watched the first 2 movies and you realized that they had advertisements on national television. They probably scattered throughout the country capturing and busting ghosts, or maybe they just scattered throughout the city and just televised it somehow. Peter would have televised. He would have made a TV show, a ghost hunting TV show about it. Who knows? That guy knows how to get a good scam going. But their names would have been known. Like, everybody knew who Fakeman was. Everybody should have known who Ray Stantz and who Egon Spangler were. They should have known who these guys were. Which means when these characters were growing up, maybe they were going to school or something, the kids, the other students, would have gone like, you're related to Egon. They would have known about the Ghostbusters through that. They would have never heard the end of it, realistically. But maybe that's part of the joke. Maybe that is part of the joke, is that the memory of people is just that short. The memory of people is just that short. Because that's the joke with Ghostbusters 2, was that after they saved the world in the first film, the mayor and everybody else, they have no time for the Ghostbusters after like a couple of years. They have no time for these guys. And I guess after they saved the world again, the second time, after a couple years, they again had no time for the Ghostbusters. Maybe that's part of the joke, so I'm willing to let that go. The tone of Afterlife was significantly different there. There were some jokes, but they were told in like a different tone. They were delivered with a different energy. I found that Peter Venkman's deadpan delivery with a lot of the jokes made them a lot more funny. It made him, it made the scene, it made the aura, the energy of all of the scenes where he made those quips hilarious. And the lack of that type of the energy is definitely lost in the Afterlife. Though it kind of feels like they were trying to bring together a new group of 4 Ghostbusters in the teenagers and the kids. Of course, Phoebe was going to be the new Egon. Finn Wolfhard definitely had the energy to be the new Peter Venkman. And that should have been the energy that his character should have gone about. He should have been the fraud, the dude that's just trying to get laid, the dude that's just trying to make a quick buck, maybe bank on the Ghostbusters brand again, and trying to make a new business out of this. You could have made Finn into the new Peter Venkman, and that would have been a good idea for his character. And then, of course, there's the podcast guy who has the energy of a new Ray Stantz. He could have been the supernatural geek guy looking after all the ghosts, looking up all the ghosts, knowing about all of the ghosts. He could have been the new Ray Stantz, best friend with Phoebe. And then, of course, we got the Finn keeping these two in the real world. And then, of course, we had the Winston Zeddemore character with the love interest for Finn Wolfhard's character. I think the name is Lucky or Layton Lucky. But they were the daughter of the police chief in the small town in Afterlife. And the four of them together made a good next generation team, which kind of confused me when they moved into Frozen Empire. In Frozen Empire, it's Paul Rudd, the mother, Finn Wolfhard, and Phoebe that are the family ghost-busting team, rather than it being Phoebe, Finn, Podcast, and Lucky. That would have been the team I would have picked over the mother and Paul Rudd. The mother definitely has the energy of somebody who doesn't really give a crap about the ghost business until she saw her father for her father's ghost. I guess she could have been interested in it. Maybe she could have taken the new Janine role. Maybe, I don't know. But she just doesn't feel like this role as a Ghostbuster fits for her, if that makes sense. I loved the dynamic that she had with the kids in Afterlife. I loved that dynamic of a struggling single mother trying to figure out her place in the world with these kids. And it just doesn't feel like she found her place as a Ghostbuster. It just feels like she was made to be a Ghostbuster, if that makes sense. If being a Ghostbuster is what she did to find her place, then great. You need to deliver that. You need to deliver that energy and make it believable to your audience that she found her place in life as being a Ghostbuster like her father was, and that she found belief in all of these things. The problem that I have here is that normally you would have the two geeks, one a science geek, one a supernatural geek. You have the con man who keeps these two together, kind of using them for business practices, and then you have the working man, the casual dude, just the working man who gets involved with these three, and that is the ultimate energy team that makes the whole thing work. She may fill the working man role. Paul Rudd does not feel like he doesn't necessarily feel like the con man role. Finn, who I thought was going to fill Peter Venkman's role, loses almost all of his character in this movie. You could take him out of the movie and nothing would change, which is disappointing. It's very disappointing, because I think his character should be used more. I think the focus of this movie should have been on the next four, on Phoebe, Finn Wolfhard, Podcast, and Lucky. It should have been on these four. They should have been the main characters of the film. But instead, it's focused on the Spengler family dynamic, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but I also feel like that doesn't necessarily have as much energy as it should have. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire suffers from the too many characters problem. When you have a cast that is this massive, you need time for all of this to work. You need time with all of these characters. You need time to build the scenes. You need time for people to get attached to these characters. You need time to tell a story. And this feels like this is trying to tell too many stories at once, and it doesn't give you enough time with any of them in order to tell a meaningful and heartfelt story for all of the characters that you want. And I feel like that is one of the biggest problems with the film. Another of the biggest problems is Paul Rudd standing in the middle here. It should be Phoebe standing in the middle. Paul should be on the side, to either in this position or this position. And Finn should be in one of these two positions. And Podcast should be in one of these two positions. And maybe Lucky in one of these two positions. And then maybe have some of the Ghostbusters OGs over here. And then the mother over here or something like that. That the covers, that's just me being nitpicky, but I feel like Phoebe should be the center, the focus character, the main focus. And to the film's credit, Phoebe is one of the few characters in this film that does have a believable arc, that does have a good story that the film wanted to tell for her, and she definitely is a standout. Another of the standouts is easily Ray Stantz's character. Ray Stantz is in his 70s now. He's retired from ghostbusting, but he still wants to do it. He still wants to get out there. He's still very fascinated in the supernatural and wants to get on the front lines and study these things again. And I love that he gets back out there and tries to do that. It's a fantastic dynamic between Ray Stantz and Phoebe. That dynamic gave you the sort of energy of Egon and Ray that they used to have in the 80s, and that was fantastic. Phoebe doesn't exactly have Harold Ramis's deadpan delivery and line delivery that he would normally have, but she has her own way of speaking that is unique to her character and works. She doesn't need to be Egon 2.0. She just needs to embody that energy of Egon, which I do feel that she does. So Phoebe and Ray, they were the standouts that I really enjoyed. The characters that I ended up really liking in Afterlife, Finn and the mother, they were very big disappointments in the second movie. And it's not the actors' fault, I'm going to tell you that right now. It's not their fault at all, because they're good characters. They are good actors. They do the characters justice. They try to embody that energy of that character with what they were given, but they just weren't given enough. If you're going to give Finn the Peter Venkman role to embody the next generation of Peter Venkman, you should have given him a character arc of trying to maybe put some scams together. And I do love that they tried to do something that was in the animated series of Ghostbusters. They had Finn meet Slimer, and they tried to have him have a little bit of a dynamic with that, but they didn't do enough with it. The scenes with Finn and Slimer felt like you could throw them out of the film and nothing would have changed. I feel like that should have been a bit more explored. I feel like you should have added a couple more scenes, maybe even 5 or 6 more scenes, and maybe add those scenes with other characters around. Maybe make that part of Finn's character where he is determined to capture Slimer. He hates this guy. He wants to get this thing out of the firehouse, so he's going to be chasing it like Tom and Jerry, and that would have been hilarious. That would have been fantastic for his character. And maybe at the end of the movie, you can have him and Slimer have a sort of reconciliation, a sort of bonding, where Slimer comes to Finn Wolfhard's aid against the Frost King guy, and maybe make Slimer one of the unique ghosts that aren't under the Frost Dude's control, and that would have been a cool idea you could have explored, but that wasn't explored. So that's the problem, is that a lot of these characters have potential. They have potential, but they're not explored. They're not utilized to the best of their abilities that I know that they possess, which is disappointing. Speaking of characters that are mostly just the actor who just came on for a day or two. Venkman, you could have written him out of the movie entirely and nothing would have changed. I'm glad that he's here, but he needs a reason to be here. He doesn't just need to be a cameo, he needs a reason to be here. He had his cameo in Afterlife. That was fine. That was all he really needed anyways. Now, if you're gonna bring Venkman back, you need a reason to do it. He needs a reason to be in the film. He needs a reason to explore his character. He needs an arc. He needs maybe Sigourney Weaver for a little bit of a dynamic. And another character that I feel like you could have explored that you kind of missed an opportunity to do so with is Oscar, Sigourney Weaver's son from Ghostbusters 2. I feel like you could have had him be one of the Ghostbusters. You could have had him be one of the Ghostbusters working with Winston. He could have been explored there as the son of Sigourney Weaver's character, and maybe have Peter Venkman be the father-in-law or something. That would have been fine to explore, but, there's no Oscar. Maybe he'll come in the third film. That would be pretty cool. If you give him a reason to be there, of course. Not just show him up just because, oh, hey, I know who that guy is. Don't just do that. You need a reason for characters to be here. Pointless cameos, we already had that. We've already done a bunch of those. We don't need to keep doing it over and over and over and just keep pointing at this. Hey, remember this other movie that might be better than this one? Go watch that one instead. No, you don't need to keep doing that. You need to give people a reason to watch this, not just remind them of the better movie, okay? You need to make this movie a movie that could stand on its own. And it's trying. It really is. This is one of the most interesting villain ghosts that I've seen in this entire franchise. I think this Frost God's more interesting than Vigo, the Scourge of Carpathia. I think this guy has far more potential than that guy. He just needs to be explored a little bit more. I love the lore and the mystery behind the little orb, which was like the prehistoric ghost trap and I would have loved exploring that group of fire masters a little bit more. This ancient history type of stuff that Ray and Phoebe go on to explore, that was fascinating. That was very interesting. I would love to explore more of that. When the Ghost King guy finally shows up, though, his presence just doesn't feel as powerful, and that I feel like is a little bit of a detriment. I think he should have been used a little bit better at the ending of the film. The build-up was certainly perfect. The build-up was certainly good. It was certainly very good with that. But I would have loved to see a little bit more of a purpose, a little bit more of a reason to show his ability to control other ghosts, and why he has this ability, and how he has this ability to make it a little bit believable. I like the idea behind Winston being this big financial king juggernaut after just being the working man in 1 and 2. He's the one out of all 4 of them to move on to become the most successful, and now he's financing Ray's store, and Venkman's just off doing his own thing. I think he went off to become a business and marketing guy to try to it's just a very perfectly Venkman type of thing that he would do, to go into business and marketing to try to scam people and other types of things. But the story, it's like I'm avoiding talking about it because there's just too many characters and not enough of them are explored in ways. There's one person that I do want to say is in third place for the standout, and that is Paul Rudd's character. I don't know if that's just because of Paul Rudd or not. It's kind of difficult for me to say. It's like, it's Paul Rudd. He's good in even bad movies. Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween 6. I liked Paul Rudd in it. Every scene he was in, I watched. I liked him in it. I don't think Paul Rudd can give a bad performance. I really don't think he can. He's interesting in the movie, trying to be a dad to Finn Wolfhard and Phoebe. Phoebe especially, because Finn's now 18 in this movie. He's going to be out of the house by the third movie, maybe. I don't know. But Phoebe is going to be around for the entire Next Generation trilogy, so he's going to have a dynamic with her. He's going to have a rapport with her, and I feel like he tried to explore one of those with her, but the plot, the writing, the runtime, the scenes that we were given just didn't do it as well as I think it had the potential to do it with, if that makes sense. I do like what he tries to do, though. I like what his character tries to do, and that is the important part. And I like that they already established that they were already romantically attracted to each other in Afterlife. They don't have to tell you that they got married. It's just understood that that happened. So that's a good thing as well. That was fine. But I feel like it's just... How do I say this? I feel like the amount of characters here could have been cut in half, maybe, which feels like a crime to say this, but I think you could cut Lucky, you could cut Finn Wolfhard, you could cut the mother out, and maybe you could cut Peter Venkman out as well. You could cut 4 of those characters out, and say that Gary and Phoebe are off on a summer break vacation for the weekend or something. They had already gotten married, and he wanted to go visit the firehouse. She wanted to go visit the firehouse, and she wasn't interested in doing that. So these two decided to go to New York to visit the firehouse that Winston had already refurbished, and let's say that he was going to offer them the firehouse to run it and all that stuff, and then they run into the Ghost King stuff to take care of all of that stuff, Caracas or whatever his name is, and that Phoebe and Ray get involved in something, and then Gus has to do something, and he gets involved with Winston or something, and just keep it between like 4 or 5 characters, and that would have been a better dynamic, a better exploration of a group of characters, and maybe that way you could explore that Gary's character with Phoebe and explore that type of dynamic, and maybe end with them having a father-daughter bond a little bit more believably, so that when they come back to the small town to meet up with these two at the end of the movie, they are now like a family, the full thing. And that could have been a good idea. I really do think so. And another thing is that they also had another group of characters that don't show up on the front cover. We have him. We've got her. We've got him. There's podcast right there. You know, there's so many people here. There's just so much going on that I just feel like each plot line that this movie is trying to explore, each character arc for each story that it's trying to tell is interesting. It's fascinating. I like the idea of a pyromancer. I like the idea that some people can do pyromancy. Like Peter Venkman was already trying to explore psychic powers and all of that stuff in the first 2 films. I don't know if it was just as a scam to sleep with people, or if he actually believed that psychic powers existed, but maybe he could have actually finally proven that psychic powers existed, and that would have been an idea. That was interesting to me. This guy, I don't know who he is. I don't know why he's even here. But you know what? He could have been who he could have been. He could have been Oscar. You know, that could have been a great exploration of his character. This guy could have been changed into being Oscar. No British accent, just Oscar. He's just there at Ghost Hunters HQ or whatever. That could have been a good idea. But as he is, I don't know who he is. He's just some guy who works for Winston. His character's a little bit more fuddy-duddy. He's a little bit more professional about all of these things, but that's all I know about him. I don't know enough about his character to feel like he's established as strong as he should have been. And Janine, she's just great. She's fine as she is, but I feel like she needs more. She needs more than what she was given, and her character needs a little bit more than what she was given. And it's nothing on the actress. Nothing is the fault of any of these actors. I just want to reiterate that none of this is on the fault of these guys. These guys are interesting. I want to know more about them, but we just didn't have time with the characters to tell a compelling enough story with all of the plot lines that it was trying to do. The runtime, let's take a look at that. Let's see how long this film was. The film was 115 minutes, just under 2 hours. You know what I think this film could have used? Maybe a 2.5 hour runtime. Now, before a lot of people say, oh, it's too long, Terrifier 2 was 2.5 hours, and I didn't feel the runtime of that movie at all. I really didn't. I thought it was really, really good slasher film, and I'm probably going to talk about the Terrifier trilogy next time. I don't know when that'll be, but it'll probably be one of the next videos I make. I feel like this film could have been longer. It should have been longer. You could have added 30 minutes to the runtime to explore these characters a little bit more, to give some more vital scenes for character building and storytelling, to make these guys flow a little bit better, and maybe edit the film a little bit better to make the pacing a little bit more flowing, because the first half's pacing, while I do really enjoy the first half's pacing, I think the first half is probably the best half to me personally. It's building, it's establishing character, it's exploring characters, it's exploring plot lines, but these plot lines don't necessarily go places as well as they should have in the second half of the film. So that second half of the film should have an extra 20, an extra 30 minutes stacked onto it, maybe, to give these characters enough time to explore each other, to explore one another. I don't think there's too much left I have to say about this film, other than, if I were to rank these films, Ghostbusters 1 is the best. Easily the best. 2 and Afterlife are kind of tied for me. I really like 2. 2 has the same energy as the first one, but it definitely isn't as good. 3 has the emotional energy. I was definitely moved emotionally at the end of the film, which obviously the first 2 films didn't do, because they were comedies. They weren't trying to be emotional. But that third film really succeeded in what it was trying to do. So I would maybe tie them, or just say 2 is just slightly better. If Ghostbusters 1 is a 10 out of 10, then 2 is like an 8 or 7.5, and then 3 is like a 7.5 or a 7. 4 Ghostbusters Frozen Empire would be a 6.5, which to me is still a fun time. It's still a good movie. It's just a movie that I want to like more. I want to like it more. It's not that I don't like it. I want to like it more. I want to see more. I want to enjoy it more. I want to explore this IP, this story more. I want to see everything there is to see about it, so that I can move that 6 into an 8, into a 9, if that makes sense. I don't think there's anything else I could say about this film, other than it's fine. It is fine. If you pop it in, it's fine. I just wish it was better.